Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to PCM22. It's Dragons episode number 18, and it is signing day. This is a really important one for us because last time we did what we needed to make Continental Pro, but as the database gets deeper and deeper and grows more and more, it ended up bumping us down lower than we had been the year before. We can't afford to have another one of those years. Now, the good news is we already have two 5-star guys internally that we don't even have to worry about re-signing, and the number of 4.5-star guys has grown rapidly. I'd really like to get a third 5-star guy, but it's going to really come down to internal development and not through the signings, because the signings themselves are not going to push us over that edge. First, though, the sponsor. The sponsor is a big one because this is going to be the last year that I re-sign Air China if there isn't another Asian option. There were some Asian sponsors that got dropped this year, so there are a few more available are already within the database, plus some additional ones that were there. I've seen multiple Asian sponsors coming through in my other career mode save with the same database, so they are in there, they do exist. We've just been really unlucky so far. But before we sign that sponsor, two quick news updates. First off, Quinn Simmons won and raised the popularity of cycling in the US. That's irrelevant for us. But Lutsenko strikes again. So even though Astana has been bumped out of the World Tour, they got an invite to the Tour de France this year, brought Lutsenko, and Lutsenko has claimed another stage. So with that victory, the popularity of cycling in Kazakhstan is now a 7. So it's climbing yet again. And with that training structure of 5, there's going to be more and more Kazakhstani riders coming through and coming in. And even though Astana is fading, and even though Israel Premier Tech has been fading down to Continental Pro levels for those two teams, they are still providing quality riders, and they are still getting those World Tour invites, and they are still coming up with some results. And then I can't believe that I forgot about the third player in Asia, which is UAE. But here is why UAE doesn't matter, why you don't count them. As you look through, there is not a single Asian rider on that roster. Not one. So even though a lot of teams have preference to local riders, Astana have 5 or 6 Kazakhstani riders, Israel Premier Tech have 4 or 5 Israeli riders, there's nothing with UAE. So they are a fully diverse international team that just take the best riders they can get their hands on. And for that reason, they are one of the strongest teams in this game. They grow, they develop without that preference. They can get anybody they can get, and they have plenty of money. And therefore, UAE always grows into one of the better teams here. You can see they've got 3 6-star guys, 3 5.5-star guys, and a slew of 5-star talents. They're very good. Speaking of good, since hitting that 5th star, Schechter. Oscar's been 5 stars for ages. He didn't have the right balance of attributes. Schechter does have the right balance of attributes, and as a result, we're seeing a major difference. Oscar had 1 win all last season, and I believe it was a national championship win. Schechter has picked up 7, including 4 just about a week and a half ago in the Qinghai Lake race. Not a major race, but it's not a tiny race. It's definitely got some quality competitors, somewhat higher profile, but he won 4 stages and the green jersey with a mountain stage and a couple punchy stages. He didn't take the overall or anything, but it was a very, very strong performance. And you can see a number of other results over the course of the season that stand out. Kranzi was 4th. A small Almasira race, Plansk race, a lot of podiums. He's sitting 2nd, 3rd, 4th again and again. Perry Troy is a win. He got a green jersey in the overall in the Tour of Serbia. 4th at Arabida, and there is that Qinghai Lake green jersey where he won those 4 stages. So it's very, very strong season for him right now, and really shows the difference of a more well-balanced set of attributes. Same with Lutsenko. Even though Lutsenko isn't great, he is more well-rounded. He can climb, he can punch, and he has the endurance, that you need and a little bit of a sprint capability that leads to victories, even though he's only a 4.5-star talent at this age anyway. Moment of truth, as we switch over to the negotiations, we of course have that 100%, but we're only going to increase by 1,000, so we are stagnant in terms of the finances. We really need to be moving on. I said I'd give it 2 years. This is the first of those 2 years, so I could be stuck another year and not see any increase next year. But we do have a sponsor. We do have, it's Tunisian. Oh man. I was told that I should take a random sponsor and then just go into the database and change what nation they are from. This feels like the perfect one to do that because of the red and white, well, and black coloring that they have, and the very random sponsor that doesn't stand out. But of course they're going to care about Tunisia and Algeria, but we can really fix that. And you know what? Let's do it. It's 113K with a max 230. We're going to go ahead and take this sponsor, and I will drop into the database and change information regarding that specific sponsor so that it is another Chinese. When I first saw the flag, I thought it was Hong Kong on first glance in that split second, and then after a second of that, I was like, oh no, it's not them. But yeah, maybe we'll just make them from Hong Kong. Making changes within the database, within the save, is a dangerous game. You don't want to mess around with it much, and you definitely need to make the right moves to not have it backfire. So for one thing, I've got a backup save in place just in case. But all I have changed is I've gone in and taken Team Tunisia and changed them to Team HK Air, as in Hong Kong Air. So we're moving from Air China to Hong Kong Air instead of Tunisia. Now, other than changing the name, the abbreviation, and that they are from Hong Kong instead of Tunisia, the only other thing I changed is what region is important to the sponsor, and that is now China as a primary and Hong Kong as a secondary. With that done, let's hope that everything pans out. We'll definitely know by January 1st if it still functions properly, but I have not changed any values, and I've also very carefully gone in and made sure that I do not go anywhere near rider profiles. I don't want to know how our guys could be or how they really are or where we honestly stand compared to everybody else outside of what information that the game already provides. But as things stand, it's August the 1st without any signings whatsoever. We are up to 77 points, where last year we were at 75, so we're already 2 whole points higher than a year ago in our index rating, and that has us all the way up to 16th, which at the moment would be World Tour status. But the thing is, we're not going to get better from the signings. They are still going to be about potential and not about current ability. There isn't a third 5-star guy that we could get after. At least there wasn't. There wasn't in May when we started this process. I did notice in mid-July that somebody, Kazakhstan I believe it was, leveled up, reached 5 stars, but we didn't have enough dossier points at that point, and they were very much in the red at 0%. That combination meant it's an untouchable one for us. But if they sign a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal, maybe in a couple of years, that's somebody we could get after. Or that's somebody that Astana will get after and get them on their team and could turn them into a leader and see them get some results like Lutsenko. And that would be obviously a good thing. Sad instance of hitting record to end a recording at the end of the episode to only find that it was starting to record and I miss a whole chunk of a good 20 minutes worth of recording. So here we go again. Let's start with the finances for this signing period, even though I've already conducted the signings themselves over the last couple of days. Entering this, we've increased our index to 77 points. That index is 2 points higher than it was a year ago. So we are looking bigger, better, stronger internally not externally, without any signings, we've already improved. But looking at the signings that are available, none of them would improve us. We have 2 5-star guys. With those 2 5-star guys, which we only had one a year ago, with those 2 5-star guys, we are better than we were, but on the edge of whether that's Continental Pro or not, because we looked at the teams last episode, was it? There was definitely some teams that were like us that had the 1 5-star and many 4.5-star guys. We had a few 4.5-star guys. Now we have many of those, but we also have 2 5-stars and plenty of those 4.5-star options. Looking at the Continental Pro teams, most of them are in a similar state. 2 5-stars, maybe 3 5-stars, or a 5.5-star. But really, there was only a couple teams right at the top that have those 5.5-star talents. So we look like we might be good enough for Continental Pro right now, based on last year's profile. But of course, last year's profile, from the previous year's profile, we had barely missed. And we got better. And we came back better and looked like, hey, of course we're going to make Continental Pro with this. We've improved. But then we didn't. And we were actually further away than we were the previous year. We went from 3.25 stars up to 3.5 stars. And it was 3 1/3 that made it. So 3.5 should have. But we weren't significantly above that mark. We just went above that mark. So that'll be one thing to keep an eye on. But out of the options that there are to sign, none of them include 5-star guys. So as a result, we're going to have to hope that the internal stuff might even get better than it already is, because right now, on paper, it's good enough. But last season, on paper, we reached that good enough stage, and it wasn't good enough because the database got deeper. Okay, I said we were going to talk about finances. Haven't said a word about them yet. Let's talk about the finances. First, Air China was going to go from 113 up to 114, but now we have Hong Kong Air, and Hong Kong Air is 113, just back with having some potential again to actually grow our sponsor income. So 113, identical income. So how are we doing this year with that income? Because that's an obvious, can we handle it? Can we handle the staff salaries? Can we handle the operating costs and rider salaries for the young Dragons? Where does it put us? Well, this year, we're actually slowly gaining money. We were just under 200K. We're at 235K now. So over the course of the year, we've picked up about 40,000. We've done that in 8 months. So we're gaining about 5,000 per month. So we can definitely afford an additional 5,000. We're spending 73.7 on the team salaries. So we know we can afford 5,000 additional, because then we would be breaking even. But we've also started to build up a cushion again. 5K, that's going to start to hit. It's going to start to go the other direction. It would see us drop by about 40K, but we can afford to definitely drop by more than that. I would say maximum 15K more could be spent. That's 10K over a month. It's an extra 120K lost over the season. It's not terribly sustainable long term. So realistically, we can increase, I'd say, by 11 to 16K, and that should be about it. We want to try to keep that to about 11. Now, in terms of expiring contracts, we have a decent number of those. I think 10 guys on expiring contracts. Combined, 29,000. So we have 29K plus 11 to 16. So 40 to 45 is the mark. We want to keep it at 40 or less, hopefully, realistically, but we could stretch to 45 for the right thing. Now, moving on to the dossiers and what is the pool of what we're trying to sign. Like I said, there is no 5-star talent available, but we do have 2 expiring 4.5-star guys, Hossein Zada and Yamamoto. I like them both. I'd like to keep them both. But we have our financial restrictions. And the only 2 guys that we took an interest in that didn't care for us that much coming back was Yamamoto, and the only other 4.5-star guy that was out there, which is Aiden Kang. Aiden Kang, mostly puncher, bit of a climber, decent prospect at 22, but not a ton of growth potential remaining already. And then, of course, Yamamoto's already 30, but I adore his climbing legs. His climbing legs are very good, and he'll hold on for a couple more years. Hossein Zada, I like him. He's a little bit weaker than Yamamoto, but he's good. But he's also almost at his potential. So those are the three key guys because they make us better, and better is good. But then there's all the prospects. There's one notable thing, though, with Chu and Hadi and one of the other guys that's expiring that I didn't open a dossier on. Out of 3 riders, we have our only classics guys. Pretty much all have expiring contracts. And out of all the talents that are available this year, there aren't classics guys. So I want to retain, realistically, I want to retain both. I want to retain Chu and Hadi. And we'll begin with that. Chu was the first signing that I made. Fortunately, I was able to return him at his 4-star level for bare minimum. So 2,500, and you can see he's fairly well-rounded. He does a few things for us, and he's not quite done developing, though he is close. Classics, the sprint, the time trial, and just a little bit of punchiness means he can do a lot for us. Hadi, though, does not have the same profile. Even though they're both labeled as 4, he's definitely weaker. I decided to hold off with him and ultimately did not re-sign Hadi. So after Chu, I decided that at minimum I need to sign 6 guys. We only have 12 returning. We needed to get at least to 18 riders for the coming season and maybe sign up to 8. As you know, 8 riders is not bad. That would put us at 20 overall. We only have 4 expiring next year, but we should have increased finances and be able to spend a little bit more and sign, 6 guys. And we've got a lot of expiring contracts, so changing up kind of the profile a little bit, but mostly getting after prospects. So we start with Hamad. He's a 72 and has good potential as a fairly all-around guy, climber, puncher. I then signed Yamazaki. Same type of profile, 4.5 star, but solid all-around climber / puncher. The best overall prospect in terms of all-around shape is Luc Tung. Luc Tung of Vietnam, strong climber, right on the edge of 5 stars, strong time trialist. Somehow that's only 4 stars, but you can clearly see that that's easily 4.5. Talented time trialist. That won't necessarily make him a GC kind of guy, but makes him strong support climber. It makes him a very, very good 2nd or 3rd option. And if there's a team time trial on a stage race, he's a wonderful guy to have out there because he's going to be one of your best support climbers, and he's going to contribute very well on that team time trial. And he'll do fine in lower level races alone, especially when you add in that he's a strong puncher, which gives him a pretty deep all around, and he can sprint a little bit, and he'll have a little bit of cobble rating, which for the right classic could make him at least a little bit of a threat. So with Chu, plus those 3, that's the first 4 guys that we had picked up. In a similar profile, but not quite as strong, I ended up having some money to spare and found 2 more prospects. So yes, there will be some money to spare. We'll get to the main guys here in a moment, but we added Islamov, Demosthenes, or Thanos, maybe we'll just call this guy Thanos, is another one who is going to be a strong puncher with decent climber, not quite as well-rounded as the other guys that we were looking at, the other 3, but 5 good prospects that we were picking up. That's the deepest set of prospects that we've been able to get after and sign each of the best prospects, and all for minimum salary. But that brings us up to our big 3. Ultimately, I wanted to get 2 out of the 3, and realistically taking whichever 2 were the cheaper options. Those 2 cheaper options ended up being Yamamoto and Kang. Hossein Zada, is already just about maxed out at his 4.5 stars. And comparatively to all those guys we just signed and to the guys we signed last year, he's already hit a max, and a max that's just not as good as those guys are going to be. He might be better than them right now. That 78 Mountain might be nice to have right now. That's all he's got. He's okay on the time trial with a 72. For now, that's one of our better options out there. And Hossein Zada has had one big race for us this year, but he's extremely limited. And he was looking for about 12,000, and I just didn't find that to be worth it, especially when combined I signed the other two guys up for 11,000 combined. And even though Yamamoto is already 30 and will start to see a decline here at some stage and has definitely reached his potential with a 77 mountain, 78 hills, and 71 stamina, he is similar to Hossein Zada. He's not as good on the time trial, but really not a very important one. We're going to have some guys coming along that are going to do that profile and do that profile better, do that role better than Hossein Zada, and obviously do it for cheaper. Yamamoto, just about good enough to hang on to, but we are just starting to see that decline because he was a 78 mountain before, or 79 mountain, so he's already starting to fall off just a little bit, and that's worrying. But I went ahead and signed him up for just 2 years and for the exact same salary that he's on right now at 6,400. And when that's half of what Hossein Zada wants, when he is as good as Hossein Zada, for me, this deal makes a lot more financial sense than Hossein Zada does. And, Hossein Zada does not have a profile that's better than this. Aiden King doesn't offer a ton, and he's already almost at his maximum. This is definitely going to be a one and done kind of guy. I don't think we'll be re-signing him. But in the short term, he gives us a little more depth as a domestique type who can come in and offer some support. And we've got him coming in. His contract, I think, was 4,000. So almost minimum, 4,100, something like that. 4,200. Very close to minimum. Gives us a little something that we don't have a lot of. And it keeps us 2 4.5s out, 2 4.5s in. It keeps us level at our top end. Unfortunately, none of those moves improved our overall, though. And so it was going to require something internally. But it's taken all of 4 days into the signing period to have just that happen. Michael Schechter has just leveled up again. He was a 4.5 star guy at the start of the year. He's our first ever 6-star prospect, and he is now a 5.5 star sprinter and still has a little bit more left. He's close to his maximum now at just 21 years of age, but he has jumped from a 78 sprint to an 80. He has jumped from his 79 acceleration to an 81. And then he's so well-rounded with a 78 flat and a 75 stamina and a 78 resistance and even a 79 recovery that this is somebody that can go out and compete for a points jersey in a Grand Tour. He would not be the favorite with this profile at all. He might not win a single stage, but he would be good enough with a good lead out to get top 5s consistently, to get the occasional top 3, and for me to go into breakaway after breakaway after breakaway and chase and fight for those intermediate sprint points and get that, if you're at the tour, 20 points over and over and over and over again at the intermediate sprint points, and ultimately beat guys who are better than him and would really, really raise the profile of Israel as a result. Super stoked about this for a couple of reasons. One, because he can actually do something about Israel's profile right now. He's been winning on a regular basis this season. He's already picked up 7 victories. I think I might have talked about this at the beginning of the episode in the part that was recorded, but maybe not. And just in case, if I'm repeating myself, sorry. 7 victories, including 4 just a couple weeks ago at Qinghai Lake. Huge victory, but it's a lower class. It's not the HC. It's just the 2.2. It's not a high-profile race, so he gets nothing out of that. But one thing that he has gotten, as he's now 35th in the Continental rankings, one thing that he and his teammates have done collectively is performed at a very high level. We're over 200 points ahead of Sport Vlaanderen behind us, and we are only just 200 points behind Ablock at the top of the Continental rankings. And there's only a single Continental Pro team ahead of us in the Continental rankings. And in the Super Prestige, we already have 1,800 points. That's already over 300 points better than our grand total from last season. And it's the 5th of August. We still have 2 months of racing to come. We'll easily get over 2,000 points over the rest of the year. Now, I mean, Super Prestige-wise, that's 20th. It's not like we're rolling over everybody. But man, oh man, we're 20th in the Super Prestige. Last year, I think we finished 35th. So, big improvement. And that has come through that internal growth. And a big chunk of that through Michael Schechter and some rapid progress that now theoretically should see us hit Continental Pro. Reason why I believe that: 2 years ago, we had reached 3.25 stars and barely missed World Tour. Last year, we hit 3.5 stars, and it was, that 3.25 the year before, and we didn't make it. Even though we were further down and missed by more positions, we had barely missed again. So 3.5 stars was the threshold, was the break point. We've got like 3.98 right now, 3.95, or just about 4 whole stars. We've gained an entire half a star over the last year with Schechter going from 4.5 to 5.5 stars. Also, the depth of 4.5 star talent has grown so much that third man, which is now Alpasov, he's got to be right there, right on the edge of 5 stars. So we really have made significant progress. We are averaging 5 stars as a team now. And that is comfortably Continental Pro last year. Not just making it, not just, 4 spots above bottom, but then, oh no, bottom rows. No, that's 4th or 5th best last season. It's probably not going to be 4th or 5th best this season for Continental Pro, but out of, 15 slots, 16 slots, something like that, it's going to be hopefully top 10. And that means middle of the road Continental Pro. I think we've done it. I think we've managed to get there finally, but we don't know for sure. Time will tell. We've got a couple months to go. I am going to proceed, push forward, but the team has done so much more this season. We've had the internal growth necessary, and we've had good prospects in the signings. And I like this part. We had 29,000 in expiring contracts. We had 28,000 in the guys we picked up. We had some weak guys that didn't have much going for them that were going out, and we have better guys coming in, better talents coming in. Yes, we do have some prospects. We have a whole bunch of prospects that are going to come in as the bottom guys, but they are the guys with much higher potential than the old group. So we are snowballing up in terms of finding bigger, better prospects. They still don't quite resemble what I'm used to in career mode. They're not your 5.5, 6-star talents, one after another that you go out and sign. The Asian portion of the database is very limited, but we are finding the needles in the haystack, and slowly but surely, it's finally starting to go the direction we need it to. I'm pretty confident. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty confident that this is finally the year that we are going to hit Continental Pro. I was not confident last year because I knew that the database was growing, but that's the thing. It's still growing. It's another year. It's going to continue to get deeper. So even staying in Continental Pro could be tricky. But as the finances improve, we can afford to pay Michael Schechter what he's going to demand, which is probably going to be a lot. But we're not going to have any 6-star talents overall, and he's almost maxed out. So I think he might be sticking right about that 5.5. Can we afford to re-sign him next year? Can we re-sign Brandon No and Guang Hai Dai and Lieberman? Those are the only 4 expiring contracts we have next year. That might be it. We might try to just re-sign those 4 guys and retain them for 3 additional years and see what that does to our finances. Not all of those guys are making minimum, so at least there's going to be some extra money to put in on top of whatever increase we see next season. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I really, really am optimistic right now that we have finally hit our mark, that we are finally reaching new heights. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Hit that like button. That does it for this episode, though. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.